In the heart of Silicon Valley, where glass towers touch the sky and innovation buzzed like electricity in the air, people believed that greatness wore suits, spoke in code, and graduated from elite universities. No one expected it to come from grease-stained hands. "You're just a mechanic, not an engineer." The words were sharp, wrapped in a polished smile. Elena Voss, the youngest female CEO of a billion-dollar aerospace company, leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes scanning the man standing in front of her. His name was Daniel Reyes. His boots were worn, his shirt carried faint oil stains no amount of washing could remove. His hands, rough, calloused, rested calmly at his sides. But his eyes held something different. Not arrogance, not fear, certainty. "I understand what I look like," Daniel replied quietly. "But I also know what I've built." Elena let out a soft laugh, glancing at her team seated around the sleek conference table. "You built it, in a garage?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "Yes. And you think it can outperform our engineers' designs?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "I don't think. I know." A few people in the room chuckled. Elena tapped her pen against the table. "We've invested over $200 million into vertical flight systems. My engineers have PhDs from MIT, Stanford, and you want me to believe you solved what they couldn't?" Daniel reached into his worn leather bag and slid a tablet across the table. "Just watch." At first, Elena wasn't interested. But as the video began to play, something shifted. It showed a strange, compact aircraft, smaller than traditional helicopters, sleeker, almost silent. It lifted smoothly from the ground, hovering with unnatural stability. Then it moved, not with the jerky resistance of standard rotorcraft, but with fluid precision. It tilted, accelerated, then stopped midair as if held by invisible hands. No turbulence, no heavy noise, just control. Elena leaned forward slightly. "What am I looking at?" "A hybrid rotor system," Daniel said. "It reduces drag, stabilizes lift, and cuts energy consumption by over 60%. One of the senior engineers scoffed. "That's impossible." Daniel turned to him. "It's already flying." The video continued. The aircraft rose higher, then transitioned smoothly into forward motion, faster than expected. It weaved between obstacles with precision no conventional helicopter could match. Then came the real moment. The screen showed a simulated rescue scenario, a building collapse. Traditional helicopters struggled to approach due to debris and wind disruption. Daniel's aircraft, it slipped through. Stable, controlled, precise. Elena's fingers slowly stopped tapping the table. "Where did you study?" she asked. "I didn't." The room fell silent. "No degree," someone whispered. Daniel shook his head. "I worked in repair shops. Learned by fixing what others built. Then I started asking why things fail." Elena studied him now, not with amusement, but curiosity. "And you built this, alone?" "With scraps, salvaged parts, trial and error." "How many prototypes?" 27. A pause. "And how many failed?" she asked. Daniel gave a small smile. "All of them, until one didn't." Elena stood up and walked toward the window, staring out at the sprawling tech empire she controlled. For years, she had believed in one thing. Expertise came from credentials. Innovation came from institutions. But what she had just seen didn't fit that belief. She turned back. "If this is real," she said slowly, "it could change urban transport, emergency response, even military applications." Daniel nodded. "It can save lives." Elena narrowed her eyes slightly. "Or make billions." Daniel didn't respond. That silence told her everything. "All right," she said finally. "Prove it." 3 weeks later, Elena stood on a private test field just outside the city. Her entire executive team was there. Engineers, investors, skeptics. And Daniel. The aircraft sat on the ground, compact, elegant in its simplicity. It didn't look like a billion-dollar invention. But neither did Daniel. "Final chance to back out," Elena said, walking up beside him. "I didn't come this far to stop now," he replied. She smirked slightly. "Good. I don't like wasted time." Daniel climbed into the cockpit. The engine didn't roar to life. It hummed, soft, controlled. The rotors began to spin, not wildly, but smoothly, almost quietly. The aircraft lifted, straight up. No wobble, no struggle, just lift. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Then Daniel did something no one expected. He let go of the controls. Gasps. The aircraft stayed perfectly stable. Hands free, perfect balance. Elena's eyes widened. "That's not possible," one engineer muttered. But it was happening, right in front of them. Then came the real test. Elena, Daniel's voice crackled through the comms, watch closely. The aircraft tilted slightly, then accelerated forward, fast. Faster than any helicopter of its size should. It weaved through a set of metal towers arranged as obstacles. Sharp turns, sudden stops, vertical drops, each movement precise, effortless. Then, as if to silence every remaining doubt, Daniel guided the aircraft into a tight landing zone barely larger than a parking space. Perfect landing, not even a shake, silence. Then, applause. Not polite applause, real applause. The kind that comes when people realize they've just witnessed something historic. Elena didn't clap, she just stood there, staring at the machine. At the man stepping out of it. At everything she had just underestimated. You were right, she said quietly as Daniel approached. He raised an eyebrow. About what? She took a breath. You're not an engineer. A pause. Then she extended her hand. You're something else entirely. Daniel looked at her hand for a moment, then shook it. The partnership was announced within a month. Headlines exploded across the world. Unknown mechanic revolutionizes flight technology. CEO Elena Voss partners with garage inventor. The future of aviation has arrived. But what mattered more wasn't the fame. It was the impact. Within a year, Daniel's helicopter, now called the Ares 1, was being used in disaster zones across the world. Earthquakes, floods, wildfires, places where traditional aircraft couldn't go. Ares 1 could. It saved lives. Thousands of them. One evening, long after the press had faded and the world had moved on to the next big story, Elena found Daniel back where it all started. In a garage. Still working. Still building. You're a billionaire now, she said, leaning against the doorway. You know that, right? Daniel smiled faintly without looking up. Doesn't change what I do. Elena crossed her arms. You could have labs, teams, anything you want. I have everything I need, he replied. She glanced around. Tools, parts, blueprints scattered across a wooden table. And purpose. Why didn't you ever try to prove them wrong? She asked. Who? The people who said you weren't good enough. Daniel finally looked at her. I didn't need to prove them wrong, he said simply. I just needed to build something right. Elena exhaled softly. For the first time in years, she felt like she had learned something real. Not from a boardroom, not from a business deal, but from a mechanic. You know, she said with a faint smile, that day, when I said you were just a mechanic. Daniel chuckled. You weren't wrong. She raised an eyebrow. No, he shook his head. I am a mechanic. A pause. I just fix bigger problems. Elena laughed. And this time, there was no arrogance in it. Only respect. Because sometimes, the world's greatest innovations don't come from titles. They come from people who were never supposed to succeed. Heart 1500 WAD.